Where do I start with this one? So, first of all, I think this is ironically an excellent showcasing of how things were under the Old Republic. I know that Mandalore isn't part of the Old Republic, but think about it for a second. Everyone is arguing and discussing things in a committee. Most of the people at the upper echelons of power are so detached from actually doing or acting that they actually are functionally powerless. And the corruption goes pretty much every level down. They had to start working their way through in order to actually find what the hell was going on with this. In fact, the one thing I was surprised by, the only thing I was surprised by in this whole episode, was the fact that none of her personal guard were also in on this. Right? I mean, I guess it would make sense that they wouldn't be in on this exact thing, because why would they be involved in this particular smuggling ring? But, involved in taking some deals and bribes on the side, selling information about the Duchess, that kind of a thing. Anyways, and we see, God, I don't know, I really like this episode, if it's not obvious. We get Satine, we get Padme, we get competency, we get politicking and economics and corruption, and the whole thing's just this one big gray morass of complex. And I like that. Like, as they're going down the chain, I found it funny how many times, it was only like 2 or 3 times, but they're like, is this Death Watch? No, Death Watch is a bunch of cartoonishly stupid, evil idiots. This is just everyday people making a little extra money on the side because your trade routes are down. That reminds me of another thing. I love the fact that the Republic is having so many issues with trade routes right now. I know that sounds strange, but it makes sense. And when I say the Republic, I mean everyone who isn't the Separatists. I know that Mandalore is not part of the Republic. But you get my point? Because most of the backing of the Separatists, the CIS, are the corporates. The Trade Federation's main shtick is literally shipping, as in getting stuff from point A to point B. So it's logical that planets that do not side with the Separatists or side against the Separatists would just kind of be locked down. They're either lower priority or they're actively being muscled out in order to try and push them. And as I mentioned the other episode, which I think was last episode, each planet relies on interplanetary trade. It's pretty much mandatory for their continued existence, just like cities nowadays. So that's awesome. One of the things I found funniest about this whole corruption angle was the way everyone acted about it. The superintendent was like, I make a little money on the side, but it's okay. I didn't want to poison anyone. In other words, that's the everyday Joe who is out for himself. What I would usually call neutral evil back in the D&D scale, if for those of you aware of that. Someone who isn't actually really that horrible of a person. They just care about themselves more than they care about others. That's all. And when it comes to something really bad, like trying to, the poisoning of the kids, he's like, whoa, okay, no, 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 no. And so, of course, he thinks of himself first, which is get the hell out of here, because, oh my God, they're going to come after me. This isn't my fault, I swear. But underneath all of that is someone who never wanted to poison children. Because he's not that evil, you get me? He's just a guy who's getting some money on the side to bring things down. And what I find funniest is one of the excuses he gives is that we did not have enough funding. Her response is that the government has provided sufficient funding. And notice how he kind of stumbles and trips over answering that. I like to think that, once again, this corruption problem goes pretty much all the way up, or at least all the way up to her. There's no denying that Satine is not really involved in this, because she's a wide-eyed idealist who has no idea how a system of government works. I'm sorry, but she doesn't. Everything of her portrayal is someone who is a pretty face, and I don't mean that as an insult. She's very charismatic, is what I mean by that. She's a good charismatic figurehead who obviously is intelligent and obviously likes to get stuff done, but she is not a leading governor. Anyways, so I get the very strong impression that the school literally has not been getting the kind of funding it needs, leading to taking deals and making cuts on the side. After all, that's one of the core problems they're facing, because they are effectively cut off from certain avenues. They are taking other avenues. Then we have the guy who is just like, look, I'm completely protected by trade contracts, and he's so blasé about it. And he makes it very clear, hurting kids and making this problem, this is not something I'm interested in doing, okay? But because I have nothing to hide, because I am fully legally illegal, that's a real thing, by the way, not just in Star Wars, because I am fully legally illegal. Here, let me go ahead and show you my records. I'll show you the exact he is fully compliant, in other words. He's just like, yeah, no, I'll help you out completely. Then they get to the Dockmaster. Now, he was the funniest one, because he is the equivalent of Satine, someone who actually thinks that he's in charge, when he's not. And that it's actually fascinating. He's so outraged and upset the whole time, and they're like, you did this, you did this, and the whole time I'm sitting here watching going, no he didn't. He is completely not in on this. This is not the kind of outrage you get from someone who is in on it. This is the kind of outrage you get from someone who doesn't believe there's an it to be in on. And he gets out there and he's like, oh my god, open the gates. We're not supposed to let anyone through. It's just his expression in his voice. I'm sorry, what? Let me in! What the hell? You work for me! This is the Duchess! Open the damn door! And then the firefight. That's the one thing, it's probably the only flaw I could point out in the plot here, is the firefight, because the smugglers, who at this point in time are guilty of smuggling and corruption, which the legal definition of corruption is basically... It's actually really long and complex, and I don't want to get into it. The bribery is what I'm referring to specifically here. So it's a subset of corruption. Decide to add potential murder to the list, because it's better to just get away and shoot everyone, including the leader of a national, a planetary government. That makes a ton of sense, right? Anyways, so they get wrecked. Once again, credit to actual tactics being used, by the way. This is not the first time we've seen this in Season 3. Getting the dumpster, basically, and using that as a shield and moving it forward was nice. That was actually fairly intelligent. The bow thing, as if it was a lightsaber, was a little bit less so, but whatever. And then they bring it up to the minister, who's like, yeah, I'll look into it. I'll make a committee to look into it. And we know that's just a wonderful way to end this, because we know exactly what committees on Mandalore are like, because we saw one at the beginning. Now, I actually am not even done talking yet. Please forgive me, because I got two more things I want to mention just really quick. I've been meaning to mention this for a while now. I love the architecture of Mandalore, the sort of blocky, shoved-together, pseudo-surrealistic thing they got going on. So I just wanted to say that really quick. The second thing is I love Satine's character arc here, because this is a woman who literally gets angry. She's basically a dark side character if the Force were involved. I don't mean that as an insult, though, nor do I mean she's evil. I mean she gets so aggressive and passionate and emotional about this whole thing that she decides to take the direct path. This woman, who is the leader of a government, forms a private squad, reportable and loyal only to herself, in order to investigate a situation. Now, we understand why. We know Satine is a good person, and she's doing this because she actually wants to resolve this situation and wants to cut through the red tape. But you can see how that's more of a dark side thing than a light side thing. Similarly, you could just tell, and the voice actress sells this, you could just tell how much she is livid about all of this. Not just about the kids. That was the beginning. That was like the initial anger. And then she finds out that people, her own people, are complacent in this. And then she gets angrier. And then she finds out that this is being done just to make a quick buck on the side. There's a specific type of anger for that, and I don't have a word for it. I know what it feels like personally. I'm sure some of you guys do too. It's the type of anger when something horrible has happened, and it's been done by someone you trusted, and it was done just for a little reason, right? Like, there's no big evil plot. There's no scheming thing. There's no, like, I kept getting the impression that she really wanted Death Watch to be behind this. But at least that would soften the blow. But no, this was being done to make a couple of bucks on the side and nothing else. And that just is the final straw for her. Urgh, right? I love that. And poor Satine. Anyways, I'm sorry, this has gone on way longer than most of my normal ones. I will go ahead and cut this off. Hope you've enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time.